This is your host, Primo, and today we're going to be testing the Fast and Furious cars in GTA and kind of figuring out what's going to be the fastest. I wanted to just jump right into this. You can see the Kanjo is racing right now. That's actually in the last place position. But we're going to be testing these cars on the track in the Grove. I just wanted to do one simple track in the Grove. Kind of seemed perfect to what we're trying to test. And it was a great area to throw these cars around, and great point to point. So it kind of tests their top end speed, how they can get the most speed in long straights, as well as being able to handle these quick weaving turns in here. I was actually really disappointed with the Kanjo. It only made a 1 minute 40.656, and I was kind of depressed. I was hoping this is the only one in the compacts class. And I had hoped that it would do a lot better than it did. I always feel like when I drove it before that it had this real good feeling of being a lot faster than it was, but it didn't. So the other thing that we won't be testing today is there's really no VW like Jesse's vehicle in the game. If there is one that I'm not thinking about, you guys put it in the comments. We also won't be testing the Integra because there's no Integra in the game that I'm aware of or that's even close to it. So in this, the Kanjo kind of would fall into that Integra category. I would like GTA to make one, but until then, we have what we have. We're also going to have a bonus one at the end, so stick to the end to see all of them. And yeah, this is going to be a cool run. You're really going to have a lot of fun with this. In our last section, we learned why Hector was too slow to get away with the money, coming in the bottom last position. But I have to say, this car really shocked me. The RT3000 was added in the tuner section of the game for Los Santos tuners, and it's based loosely on the S2000. The only time we really saw the S2000 in Fast and Furious was of any note was with Johnny Tran when he was racing against Jesse for slips. And one of the statements that was made was this car has 100,000 under the hood. Well, I would suggest getting your money back, because this car needed money in the handling, it needed money in the engine department. It really didn't have it anywhere where it counted, and I just felt like this car in real life was a lot faster than the way it was tested, and coming in really in the 9th position with a 136.384 was just sad for the car. I thought it had a lot more, but obviously somebody has to be in 9th position, so I guess this is it. Maybe Johnny Tran would like to go back and do a little bit more work and bring us a better car next time. But yeah, 9th position it is. Next is the Imponte Dukes, and I gotta say, this one, 8th position, really kind of hurts for this car. At first, you kind of think, well, it's a drag racer, probably doesn't handle very well, and this track has turns, and that makes a lot of sense. But on the whole, an 800, 900 horsepower car like this, I just felt it should have done a lot better. And it does really well, or used to at least, in this muscle class, which this is the only muscle car that we were actually testing for this. And I really think it should be on par with the Supra, even with the way the game mechanics would run it. There's no differentiation between one class or the other when it comes to that. This is really just how the car was programmed into the game, and that's something that I found unfortunate. I think this car should be a lot higher up on the scheme of things, maybe not being able to handle so well in the turns, but in the 0 to 60 here, this car should have been slamming it, moving it forward. It should have just taken to the straight and just been a bullet, and it just wasn't. It was kind of lackluster, and I really think this is how far the Dukes has fallen when it comes to the game program. This is just a victim of time, and that's the unfortunate part. So, Imponte Dukes, 8th position with a 135.376. Next up is one of my favorite cars. This is the ZR350. Now, for those of you who've watched Fast and Furious, you'd probably see, and rightly so, the RX-7 in this. The RX-7 has been kind of the co-star when it comes to Fast and Furious films, at least the first two. In the first movie, it was Dom's first primary hero car, but it only made the one appearance, beating the Eclipse. And then in the second movie, it came in as kind of a competitor car against other cars to kind of give it the feel of being something that could beat the best guys. And it is a car that can beat the best guys. The problem with it in GTA is really that the RX-7 in real life is a very handling-oriented car, and in the Los Santos tuners where it was added, it's more held as a drift car. And I think that's really just a mistake on Rockstar's part, because they kind of figured this is where people wanted the car. And in reality, this car is right on par with some of the fastest cars in the series. So it should be able to ride with the Skyline, ride with the Supra, ride with all these other cars that are up there in the top echelon. And the problem was it was more drift than it was handling, and I think that really hurt the car. If the power was a little bit more up on it and the handling was a little bit better, even as it's loose setup right now, the car feels amazing, and I love driving it. It should be on par with the Vector and winning the street races in Los Santos tuners, but it is what it is. So the ZR350 falls in 7th position with a 134.800. The part of the Evo today will be played by an armored Kuruma. No, I didn't make a mistake with the armored Kuruma. It's kind of one of my go-to cars, and I didn't want to buy a new Kuruma, so I just said, you know what, I'm going to use what I have. The car that was the Evo in the films was most notable as kind of the hero test car when it came to Tokyo Drift. It had a couple of little funny parts in there, so I thought it was logical just to throw it in. I really didn't think it would do that well. And the reality is that the Kuruma set the stage as being the first of the cars when things get competitive. So from 6th place on, all these cars are very close together with times. It kind of means the Kuruma isn't competitive on the top end, but a well-placed driver against somebody in the first place position would definitely be able to compete against those top place guys and do okay if they knew what they were doing. So the Kuruma really did a very good showing today, and I was very impressed with it being kind of it wasn't a very famous car in the film, but I still thought it deserved a position. So here it is, and it definitely proved it earned it. I know this is going to make a lot of you happy. The Remus came into the game during the Los Santos tuner area, and it was one of the cool street racing cars. Nobody really expected the 240SX to be the most competitive car, but when it comes to Fast and Furious, the 240 has been just a staple in pretty much every movie. It's been one of those cars that's kind of the go-to car that represents drifting, a little bit of racing, a little bit of drag racing, so it's kind of fitting that it comes into the 5th position. But the crazy thing about it is it's a fairly competitive car, and it's a good multitasker, so it can do a lot of different things really well. And I think that's very well representative of a type of car that goes over different genres. 240SX, Sylvia, all the different variations of this car, the different engines that it has. It just represents really well. But it also is the great car that sits in the back and kind of does what it does, and that's the beauty of this car. I really liked the Remus. I really liked the handling of it. I really liked how they did it, and I think it's very deserving of the 5th place. But that's the thing is we're getting into the fast cars now, and it's pretty cool to see it kind of in there with all the big guys, and I'm sure, like I said, a lot of you guys are going to be happy with that. The time for it was 131.936. Anybody who has watched Fast and Furious will know one car above all cars, and that is the notorious Eclipse. It really only had the one staple moment at the beginning of the films, but man, what a statement. And that statement was huge. I ended up buying one of these in real life myself. It is just such a fun car to drive in real life, and that really does transpose over into the GTA environment. Coming in an awesome 4th position. I'm sure if it makes you happy to see it here, it makes me just as happy to see it in 4th position. The only problem with it is really it didn't come in during the Los Santos tuner area. I really think this should be a tuner car. I don't think it would be competitive in the tuner class, but it would be so fun to have it in racing. I mean, heck, I would drive this car and actually lose just because it's just so much fun to drive. All in all, there's really no negatives that I can talk about the car other than I'd just like it to be faster, and I'm sure anybody's favorite car, they like it to be faster. The truth is, all this car needs is a bottle of NOS, and a big one. But on a whole, all aces for the Eclipse, falls in perfectly into the 4th position, and it's just an awesome car to drive. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I do. Next up, we have the Urus, and in the movies, I guess this is kind of our first bad guy car. In Tokyo Drift, DK, the Drift King, the notorious antagonist of the movie, is the car that we need to overcome. It's the car that the good guy needs to find a way to drive to beat him in general. And the Urus does a really good job, especially in 3rd position, of making that happen. It does very well as a handling car. It has a little bit of weakness. It did really well in street racing in Los Santos Tuner. Unfortunately, when the Vector came out, it kind of left it behind. But as a whole, it's still a very well-rounded car that I think would do very well in drifting or just racing in general. And right here, it's just proving the point of why it earns that position so well. And I think it was very well placed in the game in the 3rd position as being a good antagonist car, a car that you need to overcome, but it's not too hard to beat. Still, top 3rd position, great car, and yeah, I hope to see more of this one in the future. Was there any doubt that you'd see this car at the top of the list? No, not in the least. The Elegy Retro Custom represents the Skyline, and I mean, the Skyline is just as much as part of Fast and Furious as, you know, America is to apple pie. This car is a staple when it comes to Fast and Furious. It's been probably in every movie, and if not, it's been alluded to in every movie. We saw it first with Leon driving it. In part 2, it was a main character car. It just never gives up. And just like its real-life counterpart, it does everything well. It doesn't do it too well, so it's not the best car of every kind of car out there. But it fits into that perfect area of being a fast car, being a very nimble car, being a car you can drift. There really isn't much the Elegy Retro Custom can't do. So it is a great car. I love it. It did really well in the series. I thought it was perfect for it to be in that 2nd place position. But that really leaves us one left, and I don't think anybody would be too shocked to know that the one and only car took the top position. So I thought it was kind of fitting that this car would take the top position. The Jester Classic represents the Supra in Fast and Furious, and the Supra was just the car. Everybody always, you know, ogled over the Supra. The cars today are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for a reason. And this car really fit into the Supra category perfectly. It's one of those cars that it has a little quirkiness to it, but it wins races not because it's aerodynamic or because it has, you know, things that make it better in other ways. It's just that the car has a ton of power, and it has the ability to put that power down. So yeah, in the long run, the Supra is one of those cars that just muscles its way to the front. But the reality is that the top 4 cars, when it comes to Fast and Furious, really were very well closely matched to each other. There's places I'm sure that the Elegy Retro Custom could outdo the Jester Classic. Tight tracks, just like the Penumbra would be able to make competitiveness to it. But it will really come down to the driver of these cars to see who takes the top spot. But if we're going to compare apples to apples, the Jester Classic takes the top position, and I think that nobody's going to complain about that. I think that really is where it deserves to be, and I'm happy to see it there. So yeah, now we have a bonus that we're going to show you that I don't think many people thought we were going to throw in. So everybody loves Initial D, so I thought, you know what, as we close today and talk about what's up next, I'd throw in the Initial D car. This is the Karen Futo. This is the Los Santos Tuner version. I think it's great that it has the little tofu livery on the back side of it. But this car ended up coming in the 10th position, so the only car that it really beat was the Ballista Kanjo. And while I was testing, it really made sense that I said, you know what, why don't we just test all some movie cars? If there's a car in here that makes sense as being a movie car, and there's a couple of them. There's stuff from the Transporter, Initial D. There's all these different cars that really kind of fall into movie cars that we can throw against each other and kind of see who's the fastest movie car. Maybe get one of the A-Team cars and throw that in there. Who knows? I don't know. But we'll just look at different options for it, and it's something I plan on bringing up in the near future. But now I wanted you guys to see where the Initial D car falls in, and it really was a fun car, but the Futo has no handling whatsoever. It is a 100% drift car. If this was actually put in the movie, this guy would never even be known other than just driving tofu, because the car has no speed whatsoever. But it's definitely a fun car to drive, and it secretly has a awesome top speed. But yeah, so that's the thing is down the road we'll talk about stuff like that. We'll bring some more stuff in. We'll compare some cars, and we'll keep doing the car testing the way we've been doing. I hope you guys like it. Give me some input in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know what you like here. What's some stuff that you want to see when it comes to these kind of cars, and see some comparative, top 10s. I think it would be awesome, and it's a series that I want to continue to roll with. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the winner circle.